Hello all you card-loving cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be reviewing the open beta of Gwent. Now Gwent, of course, is the game that was originally an in-game card game in The Witcher 3 from CD Projekt Red, and it was so popular and so successful within the game itself. I know of that firsthand because I played far too many hours playing Gwent in Witcher 3 and trying to collect all the cards, that CD Projekt Red decided that it deserved its own standalone. So the game itself works very similar to the in-game card game, with a few major tweaks, rebalancing, new cards, and some different mechanics to make it a more well-rounded CCG than the in-game card game version. I have to say that straight off the bat, the changes that the game has undergone both mechanically and visually from the very first alpha to now the open beta have been immense. The visual design is much better than it was. Originally it started out in the alpha as very much a carbon copy visually of what the in-game card game looked like, and now it's very much stylized. It looks fantastic. I have to say, I love the hand-drawn aesthetic. I love the cards. I love the in particular, I love the card designs and the special cards and the upgraded cards with the movement and motion, and I think it all looks fantastic from a visual standpoint and as well as from an audio standpoint. Now, let's get into the core mechanics of the game. Gwent revolves around matches that are based over 3 rounds, and it's a point system. So you lay cards down, and each card has a power rating that accumulates to your total score. The idea is to win 2 out of the 3 rounds to win the entire match. What this means is that you will end up having to strategize when you play certain cards, how you play certain cards, which round you play certain cards. You may sometimes need to lose a round and just throw it away in order to save enough cards for the next round. And there are multiple strategic layers to Gwent that I personally find very enjoyable, and I think many other people do as well. So the first round of any given Gwent game works very simply. You'll be given a hand of cards. You are able to redraw 3 cards. Then onto the next round, you'll be able to draw 2 cards and redraw 1 card. And then on the final round, you will draw 1 card and be able to redraw 1 card. And it's a very simple system that, while it appears simplistic, actually adds a surprising level of tactical depth, combined with the amount of cards that you have, combined with the need to win 2 out of the 3 rounds, combined with the multiple cards, different abilities, and the special cards and everything like that, spell cards, monster cards, cards with various deploy effects or death wish effects. And what it culminates into is a card game that is reminiscent of other card games in the genre, however with a very unique, distinct feeling. And so if you were to, for example, play something like Hearthstone and then jump into Gwent, the game would feel very different, but at the same time have mechanics there that would, for me, instantly feel familiar, and you'd be able to pick up and play straight away. What I absolutely love about Gwent, most of all, is the fact that it isn't just another CCG with the same carbon copy mechanics that's just Witcher themed, because a themed CCG will only ever get you so far. To be truly successful and to truly engage players, you really have to get that done within the mechanics themselves, and Gwent really does do that. Even in the open beta, and the game's not completely finished, it is engaging throughout. There are multiple facets of this game that I absolutely love. There are a couple of things that I don't like, and I'll get into those in a moment. So the way that any given deck system works is that you can build your own deck based upon a leader card. So you can choose, Eredin or Foltest, and depending on which faction choice you choose, you'll have multiple leader cards and you're able to unlock more. I particularly like the monster deck. The monster deck is a deck that can be basically formed multiple ways. You can focus on the wild hunt side of things and have, cards in there that will do damage to your opponents and that will deal weather effects on a certain lane, and then that will buff your own cards. So for example, there is a card which is the Ice Hound, Wild Hunt Hound. You're able to play that card down, which then allows you to play a Biting Frost weather effect card from your deck. And what the weather effect cards do is that they will have a varying effect. Some will, for example, damage the opponent, like Biting Frost damages 1 health with all characters within a lane. So you're able to play that from your deck straight away once you've played the Ice Hound, and then on top of that I can then play an Ice Giant, which will gain 5 power upon a Biting Frost card being played upon anywhere on the field. So then I've basically reinforced the power rating of my deck and accumulated the points to put me in a really good position. And there are multiple combinations that you can use in Gwent. Regardless of whichever deck you use, there are multiple ways to build the deck. You can have themed decks, so I'm working right now on acquiring lots and lots of vampires for a separate monster deck that is all going to be about consuming monsters and buffing monsters, and then having monsters that will have abilities around the consumption of other monsters, so that when I play a vampire and that vampire consumes a monster, then I will have cards in play that will activate abilities upon that happening, and then I'll be able to draw more and play more. And I think that the way that they've constructed each single deck, each deck plays differently, has different cards, and there are multiple combinations within each one, and that really does add to the replayability. It adds to the tactical layer, and it ultimately allows everybody to construct a deck that works for them, as well as find a faction and a set of cards that works for them. And I absolutely love the variety within that system itself. There are a couple of places where I feel Gwent needs a little bit improvement. I do think that the collection of cards is a little bit too grindy without having to pay to open kegs. I think that it would have been nice if some of the prices on the actual crafting of the cards were a little bit reduced, just to make it easier to easily create a bronze and silver tier deck that was very simple. And you can still have expensive gold cards, and gold cards, for those of you who don't know, are special cards that you can play that aren't affected by any kind of action or spell. But for me, I would have liked it to be much more less grindy, to be able to just completely reform a deck if I so wished. Other than that, I'm looking forward to the full release in terms of them adding a single player story mode in there. I think that will be really a good way for people to, one, get to know the game and be able to understand the mechanics to test out new decks, and of course in a way to accumulate interesting and special cards for decks. I think Gwent in particular is probably one of the best card games I've played in a while. That and Elder Scrolls Legends, they're really just top notch and really strong opponents in the genre. In a genre that has been pretty much dominated by games like Hearthstone, it's nice to see some other strong competition with their own unique mechanics and really engaging gameplay. And I have to say that Gwent is probably something that, thanks to its mechanics, thanks to its lane system, thanks to its round based system and point system, and the way each deck and faction is very different and can be formed multiple ways, it is ultimately something that I can see myself playing very long term. So for the most part, as it stands right now, I highly recommend getting into the beta. I think it's a great game, well worth investing into, and ultimately it has definitely got my recommendation. And that is my review of the open beta of Gwent. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time.